الحمد لله وكفى والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين جاهدوا فينا لنهدينهم سبلنا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. In today's Taraweeh, we once again hear the creation story of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam and the interaction that Shaitan or Iblis had with him that resulted in his expulsion. Now, we heard that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered all the angels and including the jinn Iblis to bow before Adam alayhi salam, there was something that had influenced him so dearly that he refused to do it. And in today's ayah we hear that he came up with the justification that Ya Allah Kareem, khalaqtani min nar, that you have created me from fire. So he goes to very fundamentals about the nature of his existence, the nature of his being, his wujud. And then he says, خَلَقْتَهُ مِنْ طِينٍ, that you have created Adam alayhi salam, this new makhluk, from teen. And obviously the way that he says it, it shows that he looks down upon the creation from teen, from sticky clay. And this fact that he did this, ulama have written that usually, for a lot of us, the negative influence and is shaitan, but shaitan did not have a shaitan to influence him. And so what was within him that forced him to come up with this justification? What was within him that forced him to be disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What was within him? And so this is the force of nafs, and sometimes it can be so rebellious. Can you imagine that going against the group think? Like all the angels are in sajda and you are the only one just standing apart. So ajib. This is how powerful the force is, because usually psychology is that if everybody is doing something, then people tend to do the same thing, right? This is like the group thing. If everybody's running in one direction, then everybody, people will start running as well. So this was so powerful, this nafs of shaitan, that not only did he refuse to bow before Adam alayhi salam, then he literally stood up to his own creator, the one that his own ma'bud, the one that he worshipped, the one that he did sajda to, his masjid, all of that. So, it shows that the nafs itself can sometimes become one's own lord. That I'd rather listen to my own self than to listen to my Khaliq and Malik. And this is exactly what he did. So we can never underestimate the power of our own nafs and its ability to derail us. Right? We should never, ever in our life, till we enter into our own qubur, not be vigilant of our nafs. Right? People will think, oh, mashallah, I'm such a sufi that I don't have to worry about my nafs anymore. That's not the case. Because when you least expect it, it will come back and it can bite you in ways that you never anticipated. I mean, I'm sure Iblis never knew or never thought in his wildest dreams that this would happen to him, right? Because if you look at just before that instance, he is what is known as like the perfect worshipper, right? He is constantly in zikr of Allah Ta'ala, constantly in ibadah. It is said in some books that there was not a single place left that he had not done sajda. he has amazing ma'rifah of Allah Ta'ala, amazing ilm of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, right? So he's an alim, he's an arif, he's all of those things. But if you, for even a second, become lax with your own nafs, it will take you out of that act of submission to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and put you in a position where you will say, Ana Rabbukum al-A'la. And that's exactly what he did. He stood up and he says, no, I don't care what anybody says, I don't care what anybody does, this is my way. And he's willing to go to Jahannam. He knows about this. He knows about Jahannam. And he has access, or he had access to Jannah as well. Right? So it's ajeeb that despite knowing this, and despite having khabar of this, and that he's willing to go to Jahannam for all of eternity, and becoming aduwwun mubin, the worst of enemies of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. This is how powerful it can be. And so, as salikeen, as muridan, as somebody who seek Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, we have to be very, very careful about this. And this is why Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala sent down this blessed Sharia through Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to keep us protected. And we have to make sure that we follow it utterly, and we have to follow it absolutely in all shape and form. Right? So we can never say, I am beyond this, I don't need to do this anymore. No. We can never say that. This is for our hifada Allah Ta'ala has given us, so we don't start to act like shaitan himself. So one thing we can never trust. One entity we can always trust is Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and one entity that we can never trust ever is our own nafs. And that is why sometimes when children will say, oh, Abu, you don't trust me? It's like, sure, I trust you, I don't trust your nafs. Because, this nafs is attached to all of us. And again, it has been trained to seek gratification. It has been trained to seek pleasures. It has been trained right from the get-go to seek recognition, acknowledgement, and we see that in our own behaviors, because those are the things we covet, and that's where the nafs is coming in. So it doesn't matter how much ilm we get, that aspect is still there because the nafs has been trained. So we have to deconstruct that whole kind of thinking and nurturing that we did for 30, 40 years. And then really understand what being true abd of Allah Ta'ala actually means. And so we have to retrain the nafs to really submit to Allah Ta'ala. That's something we have to learn. What does it mean to be a true abd? That is a good question to answer. This word abd that we use quite often, right? It's a beautiful word, but what are its, what does it necessitate? What are its demands? And are we actually acting like true submitters and true ibadah of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala? Right? So, I would invite everybody to kind of think about that. Right? Like, what does the Sharia tell us? Like, what is a true abd of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala? And Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, one of the reasons, and of course not the only reasons, one of the reasons that we have been told in order to follow Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, because he is the perfect abd of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So if you don't know the answer to it, here's your answer. Right? If the answer is unclear, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to act, I've been asked, I've been called abd of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, well, right there. The answer is right in front of us. So inshallah ta'ala, this is one of the reasons that we have to make sure that we follow our beloved Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam zahiri, batini, and on an ikhlaqi level. Okay? And focus a little bit on how can we resist the temptations, just like it has been somewhat possible for us to do that in the month of Ramadan. Our Rabb, His protection is there. It is us who become ghafil of it. It's our behaviors that change. You can't just say, now Ramadan is over, I don't know, and now I'm starting. Well, we're the ones who are using our free will to act the way that we are acting. Right? Allah Ta'ala's madad is always there if we seek it. We just have to turn, maybe a little bit more, right? So let's say it's a little easier in Ramadan because of the communal aspect and other things. Okay, so what if we have to work a little bit harder? Right? The madad is still there. The nusrat is still there. It is us who become lax, right? And so these are some of the things that we really have, so one thing is our own nafs. Of course, the second is shaitan, right? I mean, we don't really need to go into that, how shaitan influences and, it's always, the Quran tells us that it will always come and, present your own amal with zinat. Huh? Like, oh, mashallah, look at you, what an amazing job you have done. It magnifies our own amal. So, again, because it has such a close rishta and ta'alluq with the nafs, so it knows that the nafs becomes happy at it. And a lot of times if you see that, we'll be sitting there and we'll start daydreaming and we're the heroes of our own daydreams. It's so ajib, we're sitting there and doesn't matter if it's the career, all of a sudden we're the CEO. Right? If it's the alim, it's Mufti Taqi Usman coming to us and asking us questions. Right? So if it's the tasawwuf, it's ajib. It's ajib how, and this is how it just comes and tickles, and then I was like, oh, if I do this, and if I do this, and if I do. I remember there was a student of knowledge that, went from here to some city, and he was spending, not really, he wasn't really working that hard, but the mother was really like ambitious, and the son as well, and the idea was, he's going to do this, and he's going to finish his tariq with Fala Shaykh, and then he's going to get ijazah, and then he's going to do this one, and then he's going to get ijazah there, then he's going to do this and get ijazah here, and he's going to get all of these ijazahs, and he's going to come back, and mashallah. And when I heard this, I was like, oh, subhanallah, it's a very interesting way of thinking. But this is that daydreaming aspect, this delusion aspect of just coming. We forget, we take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of the equation altogether. It's like I'm going to ShopRite, and then I'm going to stop by the ice cream shop, and then I'm going to do this. It's very ajib. So shaitan will always put us in that. And let's say if we are attentive to his tawbah, now shaitan comes and delays it. Oh, you have such good niyas. Karlengi tawbah. We'll do tawbah sometime. And when you actually do tawbah, then shaitan will delay your amal salihah. And this is what happens with a lot of salikeen. They have this initial rush, and yes, I have to take bay'ah in fala tariq, and now I'm a Naqshbandi and fala. And then when it comes time to actually put it the effort, they delay it. They get very much distracted, because again, like in the beginning, you have to put in the effort, you have to collect your thoughts, you have to be able to, sit down and do certain mashaghil and ma'amulat. And so, it delays the amal salih, and let's say even if we force ourselves to do it, now the opposite starts to happen, that, shaitan will start to put riya in our amal, that we'll start thinking about others, being ostentatious, showing up. Ye dekho kitna acha zikr karte ho, okay, when somebody's there, make sure your extra head is, lowered, and, so everybody can notice me, everybody can see me. And so it starts to taint our amal. And before you know it, that ujab starts to creep in. And it's the same takabbur that shaitan had. Ujab starts to vanity, that self-love. We become so comfortable with our own existence, so confident, right? Comfortable and confident in our own existence and what we do. Again, we take Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of the equation. That we are ultimately the fuqara of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and need Him every second and microsecond of our life in everything that we do. And so people will, become a little lax there, and mashallah, ujab and takabbur, become mutakabbir. And now, what is mutakabbir? Looking down upon exactly what shaitan did. You want me to do this? But I am made from fire, and Adam alayhi salam, matti ki takhliq, looking down upon others. And Kibr is al-kibru ridai, al-kibr is the cloak of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why there's some bahth about, is it better to be a humble sinner than to be a mutakabbir worshipper? So, these are things we have to reflect on in this month. Last thing, inshallah ta'ala, is that one of the other things that influence, so it was just like what things influence us, really, is also, what we have kind of been talking about in the selected hadith that we are looking at, is the companionship, is not only our own nafs, but it's the nafs of others. And so that influences us a lot of times in a negative way. And so we have to be very careful, like who we are spending time with. Al-maru ala dini khalilihi, that whoever we make our khalil, ultimately we will be upon their deen. Okay? And whoever we feel that our qalb is attached to, we will find that our hashr is going to be with them as well. So we have to be very careful with that. Like, who do we open up our heart to? Who do we spend our time with? It's very valuable time Allah Ta'ala has given us, because this, again, it's the same influence. It is written that Fir'aun, actually, on the encouragement of Bibi Asiya, may Allah have mercy on her, he actually decided that, yes, I'm going to go and believe in Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. And while he was making his way, he came across Haman and one of his ministers, right? And he's like, you are going to bring iman and you're going to accept the authority of the slave, Bani Israel. It's like, no, you can't do that. And he's like, yes, I can do it. Like one bad word, it can crash and burn like years and years of progress. That's why we have to be very careful. And this is, again, like, our nafs wants to listen and wants to indulge in, gossiping and, bade maze ki baat, tell me about that. Wala tajassazu. So too much tajassus and too much, like, just being nosy about things. It's just like, I don't want to hear any of this. But we want to be, like Twitter, that we have information about everything that is happening everywhere around the world. And so what that does is it really brings distraction. And B, the husn zan that we might have towards certain things, our masha'ikh, our own tariq, our own ma'mulat, and things like that, things that really bring us progress, we will start to develop su'e zan, right? And it's very difficult. So, for example, if I keep telling, Jamaat, Falah person is so bad. If I just say that, of course we have some manusiyat. So even if you're like, what, I can't believe it. Now it has entered your ears, into your mind, into your heart. Next day, if I say it again, Falah person is so bad. Same person. Again, you'll try to resist it. No, I don't want to listen to ghibat. I don't. Third day, fourth day, fifth day. And now you start to reinforce it. How do you stop yourself? You reinforce it. And if the other person even like cuts you off while he's driving, it's like, dekha, this person is so bad. I knew it. And this person becomes like a kafir in our eyes, and so that's how we are. And that's why it's important not to listen to gossiping and not to indulge in it. So the third influence is the influence of the whisperers. Not the shaitan's whisperers, but it's the WhatsApp whisperers. That will say things, and I personally know so many people who got derailed from their tariq, and it's just so many people. It's actually like, it's baffling. It's baffling that it happens. It's just that it's just wahan ki yahan ki wahan ki. It's like from there, like what they call it, jogli, I guess, or like what's the word for it? So it's like always like, it's the gossiping, gupshup, huh? It's the jogli aspect of things. Wailul li kulli humazatil lumaza. Idhar se that, idhar se that, idhar se that. And so for the sake of our own development, this is something that we need to kind of put a stop. I'm not going to listen to this. I think I've shared this story about Dr. Salim Saab once, he was visiting, and we were sitting in a majlis, and I was doing his khidmat. Well, this person came, very senior person in terms of ilm and spirituality and this, that, and the other. And they were having some like family issues. So he comes and he gives Dr. Salim Saab a very, very one-sided story. Very one-sided. Like he just put the blame on somebody who was really like a Muslim, and he just told that story. And Dr. Salim's like, "Gee, Allah khair kare." And the person left, and I just couldn't take it. And it was out of like concern for the Muslim. I was like, Hazrat, I just want to let you know that what you have been told is very one-sided, and there's the other side of the story, and before you make a judgment, you should really have the full story. And Hazrat was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, Hazrat, this person came and was talking about so and so, and I was like, "Oh, when somebody comes to me and starts talking about a third person, I just go into my zikr and I just shake my head. Yes. And, it's like I cannot afford to have all of this extra baggage coming. Why? Imagine if he had accepted all of that, right? Now that impression is there, and now like how do you take that off? How do you scrub it off? How do you rub it off? I was like, yes, I just go like this, and I still remember. So I was like, Alhamdulillah, that's how I want to be. I don't want to hear about like what everybody says or does or whatnot. Our life is short as it is to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can we afford to just be like about this and this and this? But these three things we have to be really careful. Don't be lax with your own nafs, especially with your own nafs. Don't be lax. Nafs is much, much strong. Shaitan is very feeble, but the whispers we can't hear, and he has millennia of experience tickling nafus. So he knows, it's just experience, nothing else. And he uses the same trickery on every single person. Same, it's deep. He doesn't even change his strategy. It's the same tactics, and it always works. Just because we don't put a shield up. And so we have to be a little careful, with shaitan, ask Allah Ta'ala's madad with all of that, and also when it comes to who we spend time with, we have to put a stop to something that takes us or derails us from the path of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So may Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala make it easy. May Allah Ta'ala bless us in the remaining days of Ramadan, this itqu min nar. May Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala make us atik like Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq Raziallahu Ta'ala, the most beautiful Sahabi. May Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala truly make us His spiritual sons and daughters, inshallah Ta'ala. Ameen ya Rabbul Alameen. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah. कुछ देर के लिए मुराकबा कर लें, खोज